Correct.
We're good.
Okay, good evening. It is 7 p.m. Thursday, March 20th, 2025, and this is the Connecticut's Board of Finance budget meeting. And the meeting is called to order, and we will start first with seating of alternates. And we need an alternate because Christina is not here, so do we have,
I moved to seat Brett Rothhauser for Christina.
all right, do we have a second?
Second.
Hi, I just want to let you guys know I actually am here.
Okay.
I made it in. I'm sorry.
Rejected, Brett.
I'm good at rejection.
Right. Hello,
Thanks.
Christina.
Hello.
What time is it where you are?
It's just 11 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Yep. PM.
Right. So we will start then with the approval of minutes from March 13th, 2025. Anybody have any edits that they feel need to be made? Any punctuation?
Oh, really? Oh,
And I do like to send things.
so,
Your thumbs? Your thumbs up? Yes, sir.
mhm.
Okay, all those in favor? We have a
I
motion.
moved to accept the minutes as written.
Thank you. We have second. I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain. I wasn't there.
Christina is abstaining. Everybody else with an aye. So next we
Bruce,
will,
we have to do a roll call if anyone abstains.
okay. Steph,
Yes.
Walter. Yeah. Okay. Bruce, yes. Jeff.
Yes. Yes.
Jason. Yes. Okay. And thank you, Steph. And we'll move on to present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, staying on topic, and maintain decorum. You have anybody for present to speak? Nick Tella.
Hey, Nick Tella, Myrtle Road, Wellington. So I've spoken on the topic of how 5% has been thrown out there and different increases and such to the town as far as taxation going up. I would like to see if any of the board members would be willing to let the public know where they feel comfortable as far as how much they would like to see the taxes go up for individuals. Is it 3%, 4%, 5%, 2%, whatever that number is? I'd like to see if any of the board members are willing to tell the people where they individually stand. Thank you.
We'll be able to do that when we vote. Anybody else for public to speak? Yes, Peter?
Sorry, I had to write it down. This last Monday,
Peter, could you just identify?
oh,
yourself?
Peter Tanaka, First Selectman, 125 Mason Road. This last Monday, the Board of Selectmen were subject to a dyspeptic screed concerning this year's budget. The former First Selectwoman first accused us without cause or evidence of holding illegal meetings. I assure you that we did not. She accused us of making up figures. We did not. We received our numbers from the town's business manager and those employees that work closest to the public in each of their professional areas. She intimated that we were holding meetings at times not convenient to the public. I needed to balance the convenience of the town with the availability of my board members. Yes, I felt it was more important to have the board present than to make it convenient for the town to watch live. The meetings were recorded and are available. During those meetings, we discussed every line of the budget and came to agreement. We were hamstrung only in that the CIP had not yet completed their work. I believe that it was concluded last night and you will be hearing from them tonight. She said that you punted, quote, that you, quote, punted your role to the Board of Finance. And that, quote, I know what needs to be done. I did it in public with my board for 6 years. Wellington deserves better than this. A 19% increase should have been where you started and then got to work to make tough choices to get to a reasonable increase, but you didn't. You failed once again. If this budget fails, the ownership is on this board, not on the Board of Finance or anyone else. That 19% increase is due primarily to an increase in the town reserve accounts in anticipation of large bonds to fund a new school and needed fire station. The remainder is to account for a pavement program that she commissioned but did not budget for. If that is true, that she was responsible for the budgets, then I believe that she was in violation of both the letter and the spirit of the law. See Connecticut General Statute Section 7-344. I refer you to the handbook for Connecticut Boards of Finance, a guide to the general statutes and principles of financial administration. From that guide, Boards of Finance, under selectmen, town meeting form of government, that would be us, the town of Wellington. In the towns which operate under the general statutes, the Board of Finance has complete charge of the town's government's financial activities. Along with the budget-making power goes the opportunity to coordinate all town government functions and to recommend and effectuate administrative changes which will facilitate budgeting. Program budgeting affords a further opportunity to coordinate functions and activities and to use the budget as a tool for planning a program for the year's projected accomplishments. It is important in a democracy that each function of government takes responsibility for its responsibilities. I think we have all seen the chaos caused at the national level when we consolidate all the power in the executive branch. I am not and will not be a pen and phone guy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peter. And do we have anybody else for present to speak? Nope, so we will now move on to new business. We'll start with.
Bruce,
Yes.
I don't know if it's present to speak, but you were talking about reading Christina's.
Christine was good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She could,
Yes, we would do it if she wasn't.
oh, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, I can do it when we get to the discussion,
okay, thank you,
or
Christie.
make the points then.
So new business, we'll start with item 1, Wellington House Fire Department fund transfer request, Chief Thompson.
Okay, so this is the request, this money, the 35,000 I'm asking to transfer. And it's been a project that's been in the works for probably 6 or 7 years. There's been a lot of reasons why it's been delayed. But this money was approved for replacing and repairing our parking lot at 24 Old Farms Road. What I'm asking tonight is to have the money, Donna wrote a motion to specify it. But to have the money transferred so that it's available in the event that the capital improvement committee approves and leaves in the plan the other half of this money, or not the other half, but additional monies for the project. The 35,000 was nowhere near enough money to do the project. Back then, it's nowhere near enough money to do it now. So I've asked for 65,000 in capital improvement for this year to join in with this money to get the parking lot repaired and replaced. Because it's falling apart and crumbling, and the septic tank is part of that. It's falling apart and crumbling. So, again, it's been a project for a long time. It's been on the books. This 35,000 was approved for that project through the process and through the taxpayers. So I don't know, Donna, if you have something to add with a motion that you think.
We don't have anything to add. The motion is in your packets.
All right. Does anybody have any questions regarding this?
Yeah, what's the total cost of the project?
The last price I got for it was 75,000. So that was,
And how many bids?
there was 2 bids at that, about the same price, and they have to be redone.
Yeah, of course, you know,
Because-
it goes to.
Yeah, and it's been
Yep.
a year or so, so it's, since I got those,
It'll be more.
it's gonna be closer to what I'm asking for. And if it's not, certainly the money will not be spent on it. Back to the fund.
Probably worth knowing, gentlemen, that the additional 65,000 requested to supplement what you're looking at now, in the plan for year one, correct? As a part of the select.
Thanks.
Your other questions or comments?
This is a joke.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, I'm ready to raise.
All set, all right, so. We have a suggested motion to please consider the following budget transfer, $35,000 from account 01.0930 capital expenditures. To account 01.0004 transfers out, $35,000 from 01.0004. Transfers out to 03.3095 capital projects, Wellington Hill Fire Department, parking lot, new account. We have a motion for that?
Yeah, I'll make a. So moved.
No second,
I'll second it.
no second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it's unanimous then. And you said one other thing, right?
Yeah, there's one other thing I'd like to discuss. It's kind of an FYI discussion. So there's $110,000, I believe, down in general reserve.
It is in the approved previous CIP plan, just in a previous year in the CIP.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so it's $110,000 that, again, went through the process of, the Board of Finance capital improvement and to town vote, and approved for surveying and engineering at 25 Old Farms Road, where we would like to see a, new firehouse. And the reason that developed was because the Board of Finance at that time wanted to see us get caught up to where the other department was, so we can get better idea of what the building and the project would cost. This is a step that has to be taken in order to, like I said, put plan on paper and get a better cost of what the project was going to be. So with that being said, there's been a suggestion that we release that money back to general fund because the project isn't taking place yet, or isn't taking place, that we're not in charge of it. My opinion is that the project is still in place. There's a committee put together, the Firehouse Building Committee, studying the projects. There's a consultant right now out doing, as you all probably know, doing research to see where the best place and what the best thing to do for the town of Wellington is. And unfortunately, it's just, for me, it's a timing issue on releasing this money back to the town, as opposed to keeping it for this project, because the consultant and the committee have no idea what is going to be in the future at this point. So I kind of wanted to see that money left alone to be there for when the consultant is done and when the committee is done, in the chance that they would say, okay, we need it for some surveying and some engineering, so we could see what the future costs are gonna be for some of this project. Not sure what that would be. I'm sure it would have to change from exactly what was requested by us for 25 Old Farms Road, but it may be the same. So again, if it's not, if once this, my vision is, once this consultant is done and the committee's a little further along, and that 110 is not necessary and it's not gonna go towards anything like that, I'd be more than happy, and the department would be more than happy to see it turned into another capital request that we have. So currently it would only affect if the first year of the capital plan. If, again, nothing is needed, if that money is not needed, nothing is needed to be done after the consultant and the firehouse committee gets a little bit further on into it, then, and again, as they come to a conclusion that, we're gonna bond the whole thing, or we're not gonna do anything, whatever. Then again, my department would like to see the money go towards another capital request by our department. Transferred into that instead of leaving it where it is. But again, unfortunately, because of the timing, it's not easy to say, okay, let's just turn it into something else right now. Because again, we're so far into this committee and consulting that it may be needed. So I don't see the rush in turning it in because it only affects the first year on the capital plan. So, I mean, that's one thing I just wanted to bring up because it's been a topic of discussion around.
What's the timing on your consultant possibly wrapping up, you know, with the committee and everything?
I believe he's talking about 3 months, 4 months, somewhere in there.
So it's not that far in the future.
What's that?
So not that far in the future.
It's not that far in the future. Unfortunately, it's not gonna be within his budget season.
We're estimating sometime in June.
And then I give a little window afterwards for the committee to digest what he's created and what they've come up with. To see if any direction is given or anything like that. And then at that point, like I said, be more than happy to do what suggestions are and turn this into a different capital project. For year 2 or 3 or 4, whatever. Land.
Any other questions? Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
So. Duncan, do you have anything?
Not on the topic of the transfer or the 101. 5 other things that I'll say later. Thank you.
Could I ask a question? Do you have any sense of what the committee stand is on doing this? I mean, have you discussed it at committee or?
I haven't had a chance to discuss it with the building committee yet, and I planned on discussing the reason why is because we were meeting with the consultant, so the last couple of meetings were tied up. And again, it's just not falling into place
Right.
time wise.
Well, our last meeting was canceled. also.
Yeah, the last meeting was canceled, so again, it hasn't fallen in.
Okay.
I had planned on discussing this 110 and our capital request for roof and parking lot at 24 Old Farms. To see, okay, does the building committee feel that that's necessary as well, or, not? So I do plan on discussing it, but just the timing is off.
Okay, but you're thinking, your thoughts are that the priority on employing that money in the way it was originally intended is sort of trumps transferring it into another capital
At
project.
this point, because we don't have any answers.
Right.
If we had some answers and they were negative towards using it in the original intent, then by all means, but we don't have the answers, so I'd really rather leave it earmarked for what it's earmarked at this point. Like I said, it only affects the year 1 of the capital plan, so
Thank you.
Yes, chief.
thank you.
So we'll now move on to item number 2, capital improvement plans. You're gonna have James Marshall.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us in. Or me, and we have other members of the committee here as well. We were last before you, or I was last before you early in the season, I think in January. As we had received our first look at all of the various project requests that came in this year. And we talked a lot about how we're coming off a year where the capital budget was cut last year. How we have a significant capital project need coming up in the ever increasing or ever rapidly expedited future. And that there's a need to start planning for that capital burden so that we can have a gradual impact in the level of funding need across the years rather than big hits in any given year. 3 months of very critical deliberation later, we are still, not much has changed. There are still 2 major capital projects on the list, the fire department. Fire station project being one of them, in whatever form that ultimately takes. And also some renovation or significant school related project, whether that's a consolidated school project, whether that's substantial renovations. Both are in a significantly high bonded need. Greater than $15 million each, anywhere from $15 to $20 million. In addition to numerous high value road projects, Schofield Road, Lister Road, Village Hill. With varying opportunities for funding source. So the. Many of the priorities that we talked about really early on in the plan are still here. What the committee did over the last 3 months, and I'll walk you through some of the changes and some of the methodology that the committee went through. And then we can go into as much detail as you want on any of these. First and foremost, we worked really hard to look back at prior approved projects that were pending, that were incomplete, that had hold on funds. Because we had a fund balance estimated coming to this year of about $113,000, which is almost nothing. So by taking a critical look at all of those projects, and you'll see that in columns F through G through I, excuse me. Those that remain, and I will tell you, this list is significantly smaller than it was. So with that effort, closing things out like chimney repairs, some duplication of projects. As Chief Snyder said, there was a request, given the numerous projects and the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee, to close out the prior requests, given the new committee. Wellington Fire Department number 1 did close out the prior, it was a Fund 17 project, but their prior project for the renovations, design and engineering at the Station 13 location, also driveway aprons. The chimney at the schools was taken care of. At a number of these projects came off. So what that wound up doing was increasing our available fund balance in year 1. Which is good because that lessens the funding need to address year 1 and additional years. So that balance went up. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the sticky page to a starting balance of $372,000. So that was the first big effort of due diligence. And I'm sorry, what you have before you, there's 2 pages of the 5-year plan as was approved last night by the committee. It was 8 yeas, 1 abstention, Chairman Tanaka, or Selectman Tanaka, and Christina was absent last night. Unanimous, following the exception, the extension. So what you see before you, there's 2 pages. All of the capital projects that are in the 5-year plan are on that first page. Page 2 is a fund expenditure by fund summary. Line, just to give you a reference point, line 69 is at the bottom of your first page. It's also at the top of the second page, and that's the total of the spending by year. Just to get frame of reference. The third page is the 5-year budget projection and fund balance summary. The top lines are the balance, the withdrawals, and the deposits anticipated across the 5 years of the plan. And below that, you see all of the projects that are coming out of each of some of those funds in any given year. The last page is a working draft for a working planning document for the committee. We had built in and are trying to take a look at projects beyond the 5 years as well. What I will tell you is we've all throughout the season, we've had a 5-year and 10-year projection summary page of the whole list. We can look at total spending throughout the entire year for the purposes of keeping the focus on this 5-year plan, as it's the document that we're actually approving. We pulled a lot of that. We haven't included that beyond 5 years in the actual spreadsheet. But what I did include was a list of some of the major projects or major expenditures that we're anticipating that are projected for years 6 and beyond. They have not been submitted requests. Some of them may very well should be. Some have been submitted, but we don't have the full funding capability to capture them in the first 5 years of the plan. Scope of Bird is on there. For example, we'll talk about that a little later. There's also one of the other things to consider. There are 4, and the fire department apparatus is becoming a high priority item, as we're aware of. The departments do a really good job stretching out the service life of their vehicles, but they have 6 primary pieces of apparatus that are over 30 years old. A recommended service life. They are inspected every year. There is a single replacement fire truck on the plan in year 3. But there are 4 other pieces of equipment that have not been submitted, but are inevitably coming. And they are high value. There's also additionally to go on that, other major equipment is the Public Works, dump truck replacements. They're a little front loaded, but going on a 10-year cycle replacement for their 4 trucks. There is one in the wonderful plan currently, but there's 3 additional that will come back up for consideration again, and beyond that 10-year life expectancy beginning in 2030. And as I mentioned, Schofield Road drainage, there's still almost $2 million of future projects to complete that project that we're starting in the 5-year plan now. That isn't covered by a grant. But we don't have a funding source for that yet, so we pushed it out. There's also a couple of library projects. There are also probably a dozen other smaller pieces of equipment that will fall on this list, and this will grow as things get deferred or as other projects come along. This is the new effort this year to really start tracking that. But it has helped inform, and you'll see the need there unescalated is in the $4.5 million just for those. Sure, well,
The fire apparatus is the amount of fire apparatus and what we have being looked at by the committee and the consultant.
I believe that is a part of their
What's
work.
actually necessary versus what we have today.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, some of those are tankers. I think it's one for each of the departments. Looks specialty pieces of forestry and the tank 149. So those were the big ticket items. The other big change in this list is rather than projecting, oh, we're just gonna bond a project. Here's a $30 million bonded project. We took a look at what the actual impact, what the potential cost would be. Given that we had very relevant and recent school bonding analysis data provided by the Board of Ed as of December. So you'll see instead of capturing projects as a $17 million bond, which is not what is going to affect the taxpayer, what we have captured instead is the initial bond payment based on that need, based on those rates from a recent bond schedule. Because that will become local spending for these projects when they hit. So you'll notice that it's both school projects, fire departments. We also have the Lisco Bridge culverts bonded at this point in time because that's another major project that we don't have a grant for. But what that does is allows us to actually, instead of just saying there's a hypothetical, yeah, we're just gonna bond that down the road. This is what it means to bond that, and this is what the impact is, and this is what the implication is over the years. So with all that said, the plan you have before you was approved as a 5-year plan. I know you look at year 1 as your capital budget, but as a capital plan, what happens in years 2 through 4 can impact year 1 and vice versa. For example, last night in our round of deliberations, we pulled something from year 2 in the plan for $200,000 that reduced what we had previously set for year 1 by $160,000 in local spending. So all of that is integrated, and it's that methodology and that mindset that we're trying to work towards, looking at things comprehensively so that we can plan gradually for the future. It's really important because we are not adequately saving we have a growing expenditure need, but we are not growing our savings to significantly or at a even close to comparable rate that need is growing. And to the point that we can get ahead and be bonding less, long-term financing less, pay yourself first, rather than paying interest, let's accrue interest. So all those strategies were thought of as we developed this plan. What I will say, and the committee I think will agree, as we discussed last night, that this reflects our best effort at understanding the budgetary concerns this year. with all of that in consideration. We were very quick, we spoke for 2 hours, it didn't change much last night because we had done a pretty good look. But the reality is those big projects are coming. And the goal on this is to get to see increases in local spending be gradual and not be big jumps. We can't avoid that without seeing these projects are hitting. We have, the fire department project is currently captured as a year 2 note and a year 3 on. There is no capital reserve. There was no shock absorber for town project. So that is a significant hit that you'll see in the plan. In year 3, with the local spending total just from 2.3 million to 3.7. That is almost 3 mil in the taxpayer. In an ideal world, we'd be spreading that out. Gradually. By putting another $400,000 or $500,000 into the company for this year. So that the spending is less of a hit, so we take some of the hit now, some of the hit next year, so that's not a big hit in year 3. The other thing I'll note is the other major project, the school project, based on updated, I guess, correspondence from the superintendent. There's legislation currently pending, as I guess up in this legislative season in Connecticut, that has the potential of providing an opportunity for Wellington to get a 79.54% reimbursement rate on a school construction project, whether it's renovation, substantial renovation, it's near or new school. What that does is it significantly, probably the other big piece of that is recent other municipalities, I think Sherman, but don't quote me on that. And this is a big change from the school referendum, was that they were allowed to submit a project through grant application without having it passed. So they were able to get an understanding of what their definitive reimbursement rate was and how much the actual cost of the town would be prior to putting it before the town as a vote, which is huge compared to, what we need to do, what happened at the last and the uncertainty around costs. So what that does, and we have updated numbers from them, but it's assuming an $85 or so million school project, which was the new school option, I believe. That's the cheapest scenario that they had, but at that 79.54% reimbursement, it becomes a net cost to town of only $17.5 million, which is significantly less than what we were looking at years ago, despite escalation. So what has been done is we've captured that as a placeholder. There is an 18-month window, and we quite frankly don't know what the timing is on that as to when the grant, once approved, there's an 18-month window where the town would have to get referendum approval, voter approval, to move a project forward. We are carrying this as a year 3 note, a year 4 bonded project. It could move forward a year. It will not move back a year if this legislation passes. We won't know more until after the season's over, but we have it as a planning tool. What you'll see happen in the plan because of that is that shock absorber, the $1 million request for the $1 million shock absorber is carried through years 1, 2, and 3 in the plan. And it goes away in year 4 and 5. To offset a big portion of that year 1 bond cost. Which translates down, and this is why we say planning and saving for project is important. Because unlike where we're at, unfortunately, with the fire departments, and I believe we should be saving for that more strongly than we are in this plan here as well. In years 4 and 5, we only see the equivalent of a 1 mil increase to pay for that school, in total spending, because of the offset. And that's line, I'm sorry, I should be giving lines. That's line 77, is the number you're looking at. So if you look at year 3, year 4, we're in school bond hits. In year 5, again, that local spending is only going up about $500,000. Which is a more gradual track that we're really trying to achieve, which is careful. All right, so beyond that, you'll note, I'm trying to think of the best way to go over this with you. So prior approved, these are items that were still in the plan, but they haven't advanced forward. You see the school roof project is still on there. The likelihood is there's a version of that regardless of what happens to the school. It's also a high priority for the town. So it hasn't been submitted as a request by QCIP, but it's carried in there. And the funding is available in capital reserve for it. But it would detract from available funding to offset some of the other the significant capital project. There's a balance for the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee. There's 160,000 of that fund that was approved last year. That was additional money submitted in addition to the 110,000 and the 80,000 and the, yeah, I think that's it. That was clustered for those projects across both departments. So that's been consolidated to the Emergency Services Facilities Committee. Like I said, there's 160 in held in Fund 04 for that need. There's also, as Chief Snyder discussed, there's the 110,000 for survey and engineering of 25 old farms. Had a lot of discussion about that on CIP this year. The parking lot replacement he also talked about. There's $35,000 of funds that you just moved. There's 65,000 in year one in the selectmen's budget. And there's some holdover low SIP funding for an envelope repair project of the library that is still that as the latest direction that we have from the new director of the library. They are trying to work through getting that project done before the end of this fiscal year. We'll see where that goes, but it's low SIP, so unfortunately that doesn't really have any impact to our budget. It's a separate fund. It doesn't, we don't have to pay for that project out of taxpayer dollars, but that's that. So what you'll see here and what we grappled with year one is pretty lean, in all honesty. We did our best to offset and shift. It is years 2 and years 3 that are the big burdens. Year one only has the continuation parking lot replacement. There is a refurbish of Squad 113. That is coming from Fund 17, so that is not a taxpayer hit. That is all, it's a refurbish of one of the major one of the primary vehicles. That should give them additional service life for that. There is an air containment system. I think Chief Moore was before you about the OSHA issues they're having at Station 213. That is to cover that exhaust for that project. What we did originally, we had the Public Works as 2 vehicles in the list this year. We've captured a replacement of a Mara, which is which was a new request this year. We originally had that as a lease payment. We have the funding in Fund 4 to pay that outright and avoid the lease. So we've captured that to try to offset some of the spending, the local spending need this year. There is a replacement of one of their dumps that is a lease because we do not have the funds to do anything with that. So you'll see that on line 37. That's the $49,000 request. There is, and then we go a number of road projects. I'm going to go through these. Village Hill and Schofield Road. There is a grant, $2 million that Selectman Tanaka was able to, with the help of Representative Nuccio, to cover some on projects that have been in the plan for a decade. Village Hill is the first part of that. It's a $750,000 estimated project. The engineering of that for $50,000 is in year 1, so that the grant will pay for that in year 2 in full, and that project will be taken care of.
We as a town need to pay for the engineering. They will pay for the $750,000 construction. If we don't pay for the engineering, they keep their 750. 750. Yeah.
And that's important because in year two, there is a $500,000 design and engineering Snowfield Road project. And again, it is a much more substantial and complicated project, but this is a project that has been in consideration for I don't know how long.
1999.
There you go. Oh, yeah, so the plan and discussion with Peter was to get the engineering for that as a phase project. That because of all the state and regulatory approvals to get that project moving, it'll be engineered all at once. That $500,000 will cover that. The remainder of the grant will cover the first phase of that project, as much as $1.25 million that's left will afford to do. As of right now, the balance of that project it's not funded in this plan. That's why it shows up in your 10-year plan. It was submitted as a $3 million project. It may wind up being more than that if it gets pushed out, but that's what we have now. The salt shed you've seen in years past, that's still in here. There is a steep grant for Old Town Hall that is closing out. And we are hoping that that is eligible to try for that again. We should probably be planning for it because steep grants are very competitive. We have never tried to fund it. It is a project that does need to get funded in some way. We are capturing it as a steep grant for now in the hopes that magic or lightning in a bottle will happen to move that project along in some capacity. What else is in there? You'll see the bridge. The other major road project is Lisker Road Bridge and Culverts. There's a $300,000 payment in year 4 for that, for the engineering of it. And that is a $2 million project that we are capturing as a bonded project now, because again, that's another of these major roadway projects that we don't have a fund balance to start working for. We can start to save for it. I'd love to see a project of that size be able to gradually get paid rather than bonded. But that's where that's at. The library, just quickly down the library, they have a smattering of project, one for each year except for year 5. Those are all LoCIP funded currently, so that's state money. That is not taxpayer money. That's what we have allocated to cover that. There is adequate balance to do that. Selectmen has another big item, which is new for this year in year 2. Replacement of the animal control facility. That is a $375,000 project.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Sure.
I think what we need to do is change some of the verbiage. It's not the selectmen's budget, it's the town's budget. I'm just,
It shows up in the general government budget.
General government budget, that sounds much better. I like to think that,
Which is the
it's
budget
all
you-
of our budgets, the whole town's budget. Mine regular.
Certainly.
You're working the steel though, on the animal shelter.
I'm trying to work a deal so that this 300 and whatever $1,000 doesn't ever come up. I'm working hard that we don't pay that.
So it is captured as a capital reserve project in year 2, rather than a direct taxpayer hit. Currently. Reval for the assessor, replenish our open space fund. Those are fairly consistent projects that have been here for a while. New in year 2 is also funding, the start of funding for plan of conservation and development, which is due in 2028. Depending on whether that gets done in-house, and that's a discussion for later date, there may be a second round for another 60,000 if it goes to an outside consultant. And then new this year is a number of requests from the senior center. Nothing, nothing is really fully fleshed out yet. They're very new to the process, but they did have a number of requests in here, or projects that they were looking to have accomplished. The only one we have captured in year 1 is toilet room door operators to make their restrooms handicap accessible, which is pretty important. When it comes to an accessibility concern, that is again LoCIP funded, so that's not a taxpayer hit. We have We have the capacity and logistics to do that. So when all is said and done, like I said, the big hit is year two. And we spent a lot of time discussing, or the big imminent hit to capital reserve fund to avoid it being a hit next in year two for right into the general government budget. It drives what the transfer, it drove what the transfer to capital reserve fund, so we need to cover that project, and there's $932,000 worth of capital reserve spending. A lot of that was originally just in a direct budget hit. Yeah, so we have $932,500 in year two, being funded from capital reserve. With what we're able to recruit from savings in the prior approved projects. That equates to a 600, where do we end up on this? A $640,000 request for transfer to fund projects in year one, this coming year. That would leave at the start of that year, that's 10,000 to spare in capital reserve to cover all of those year two projects. We looked at this in a lot of detail, and they're really, as each of those projects in year two are a priority, one for grant funding, one for animal control facility, we're going to be up against no matter in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully, a lot less than $375,000. And there's also, I apologize, $200,000 additional in there. Oh, no, there wasn't. We pulled that. I'm sorry. What we did do last night was put $200,000 in year two, which was a request for supplemental funding for the, it was submitted by Wellington Health. We had transferred it as a request to the Emergency Services Facilities Building Committee. Supplemental funding for that committee to advance the fire station projects. Given that they have $160,000 balance in the private to work with after the station location study. Given that the school over 2 years, the school building committee spent $130,000 to advance those projects to referendum and develop reasonable budgets. We pulled that funding also with the expectation that design and engineering of those projects could be rolled into the future bonded project total, similar to what was done for the school building committee. There's $5 million of design and engineering, that bonded project that we looked at, that failed at referendum. Which is why a lot of the discussion happened about the existing 110,000 as well. Because there's a lot of funding tied up in those projects, and we have a committee that's dedicated to advance those rather than trying to consolidate and clean up the plan for efficiency. So this is where it stands before you, the committee's best concerted effort to be as tight. It's come down significantly from, I think, the earlier version that Mr. Tanaka had probably showed you. I think this floated around at a $2.6 million local spending initially, so we did come down quite a bit. But again, to fund the projects that we feel are inevitable or a need in year two, that's the level of spending for year one. There was one other thing I wanted to say here. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Did you mention the factors that are in there now that weren't in a previous plan, or, you know, the year-to-year factors that you put in?
Oh, yeah, so, well, I didn't put, there's a 10% annual, the committee's target, and has been for a number of years, was to increase, because of how far behind we are, was to increase both local spending and local saving. To start to try to get ahead of no increase capital spending for decades that left us as far behind as we are now. Over the 5 years of the plan, just 2 major projects alone, for example, we have a $7 million general government budget this year. Each of the 2 major projects is more than double that. So from scale and complexity, when we're talking about a 5% increase target in the total general government budget, the scale of the magnitude of the need in here is quadruple, quintuple, what that is and what the impact is to the town and the taxpayer. That's the reality of this magnitude of this plan. It has been for a while. The committee really tried to walk that line and got this as tight as we could, but do not feel it is enough spending. It is enough capital reserve funding. Yeah, and it's not, because you're just covering the project in year two. We're not developing a shock that already meets the burden for taxpayers in future years.
You have an inflationary factor in here though, don't you?
No, it's not.
Okay,
They're not in here. I did in the 10-year just because 5 years out from now.
right.
It is important to note, and that's a good point, Steph. It is not easy to build escalation into this plan spreadsheet. I'm trying, but we're gonna work on that for the purpose of, and honestly, some of them go at different rates. For example, fire apparatus, we're here 12% annual. Increase on $1.2 million piece of equipment. That builds up real fast.
Mhm.
Construction escalation, 5% a year right now. And that variability is gonna change, based on where things are headed and with tariff wars and trade wars and yada, yada, yada. Beyond standard inflation.
Christina has her hand up.
Yeah, go for it, please.
So time is money?
Time is money, so I'm hoping we can get a better handle on it. I included some placeholders on that to give you an idea, since 5 years is a significant amount of time that we're gonna see those projects increase, as Chief Snyder said, even on the roof, not the roof replacement, parking lot. A $35,000 project, a $75,000 project is submitted as $100,000 total cost now, and it hasn't been that long. So moving on these sooner, and some of these we're gonna be forced into from a timing standpoint. So Christina, summary on the final, jump in.
Thanks. I just wanted to thank Jim for his leadership on the CIP committee this year. And I do encourage the rest of you to really take to heart and really understand all the different components of this plan. It's very complicated, and I think Jim's taken us a couple of steps further than we've ever been in terms of actually itemizing and understanding what all of our equipment needs are and looking into a plan into the future. And that's it's hard to see all that on one piece of paper, and it's hard to digest it, and it's hard to communicate it. And if at least the people on the CIP committee and at least the people on the Board of Finance can understand it, then we have a shot of being able to explain it to the townspeople. And that's ultimately what it is. It's the town's plan. And we hope that people will support it. And in order to do that, they need to understand it. So I hope we can all get behind that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Christine.
So yeah, just in summary, what you'll see here is where year one hit is a $377,561 increase in local capital spending this year. But a $234,000 increase in savings. So we are still spending more than we are saving, by quite a bit. The number, what that reflects, based on last year's budget, CIP portion, as a portion of the government budget, is a 5.33% increase as it stands today. The only opportunities at this point are to further reduce transfer to savings, which again, just pushes the burden, a greater burden on taxpayers in later years. The only other is to free up additional Fund 04 balance, which would be, as was the topic of discussion, closing out the design and engineering, $110,000 in design and engineering. Understanding that there is still emergency services facilities building committee. It would reduce the capital need. We could reduce the transfer and still maintain where we're at, but those are the options for consideration. Beyond this, we're either not funding projects that have grant money attached to it that will come screaming, or Um. Again, a continuation, Frank, but that's why we gotta start looking, this is a 5-year, and we have to start looking at it as a long-term planning exercise. Rather than an annual budget, and I hope in the off season, and we talk a lot about it, on the committee. But trying to get that outreach, trying to get that planning, doing a joint meeting, as you start to look about strategies for approaching this. Comprehensively, not just us, you know, but with Board of Finance, with Board of Selectmen to figure out how to. Change the conversation so that we're actually doing something. Because quite frankly, any people like. There's not much need for the committee spinning wheels if we're not willing to invest in ourselves in large part at this point. So at any rate, I know it's a lot. I am always available for questions, as I'm sure as Christina and Steph, right here in front of you. If I don't mind, does anybody, I think we have a couple. I don't know if you have a new CIP. You got anything to add, Jeremy?
Nope.
No, well said. Yeah, so like I said, if there's any questions, if you want to go into more detail on any of these projects, we're happy to do it to the extent that we have it. Or that I can remember it off the top of my head, but I'll try. So that's really where it's at.
Thanks. Any questions?
I just had a comment that, you know. Sure, we need all these things. I'm not debating that. I think we need to become more open-minded about development in this town, so we.
About downside,
We need to
More
become
open-minded
open-minded
about
about development in this town if we want to fund all these things. That's my comment.
and I'll take it. Anybody else? The only thing I will say is, again, because of the cuts, if there are cuts anticipated. Like I said, I know you guys are looking at a 19% general government budget increase, CIP is 5% of that. I don't know where the selecting budget is gonna fall. Realize that funds out of this are coming from one place, it's coming from reserve savings, really, at this point, so. If you provide guidance through your deliberations, I'd ask you to be specific in the general government budget as to. Where the priorities are and where the cuts should be. So that we can go back and look at plans, select and look at their budget as well, but. Yes, I just ask you guys to try to be specific with guidance in the absence of further direction, because we really have been critical. Of these projects and of this plan this year, so. Don't hesitate, and I'll be here for a bit if you have any questions.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Any further questions? We move on to item number 3, which is discussion. Had discussions last week and they ended. Anybody have anything to add to what was discussed last week?
I was wondering if, Donna could talk about the fund balance forecast.
Yes, I would love to talk about that.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question? Is there a copy of the current budget, like all the list of requests and everything that's proposed right now available to look at?
You're all online.
They are not online. The
Yeah, I tried to find them online first.
Finance has the full general government budget.
Okay, there's not an extra copy to look at right now.
No,
It's okay. Okay.
there's not.
All right.
Did you, who did you say has it?
So, you all have the total general government budget, because when Peter presented his budget, all of the budgets that were presented before Peter are in here. So you have a bottom line for the total spending, which includes general government, pre-K through 8 and Region 19. What you didn't have a presentation for is Parks and Recreation, because we didn't have a director. So I designed the budget for the new director to inherit, and it's flat, no increase. And what's not in here is the probate court, because we didn't have a number from probate court, but since then, we've received it. And, it's actually a decrease this year. Okay, the third thing that's not in here is the change that was made at CIP last night, which was a reduction in the general government budget of 360,000. I think. Let me just check that.
Was that package handed out 2 meetings ago?
Yes,
So I didn't get it because I wasn't here. So I'm gonna get a copy.
yes,
Thank you.
and you know what, I think,
It's useful.
yes, because you're in the dark, Walter. It's reduced by 160,000. That was the 160
Last night, I don't know
Stephen,
whenever you were.
last night, yeah. Getting out there. Reduction, so anyway,
So the probate number isn't in there.
it's not in there, but it's less than what it was last year.
Okay,
But as fast and furious as I can tomorrow morning, I will update that and get this out to you
thank you.
by email, so you have it for the weekend and you can study it. And know where you are, but be confident you have good numbers, that everything that was presented. And I will even try and get a summary sheet for you by department. So if you don't want all of this paper.
Don, I'd like to just ask, when you do that, make sure that the CIP number is, as a part of that pie chart. That's in the upper corner of that summary,
So,
the capital spending in the budget, if we could make sure that that number is accurate,
yes,
because it's assumed.
this is the old number. This will be
Yeah.
reduced by 160,000. Yep,
Can I ask a question about Region 19 and what percentage that is? Because I don't think I've seen that yet. And I'm sorry, I apologize if you sent it in the last week. I just haven't been able to get my town email for some reason.
the initial increase from Region 19 at 6.5%. It's an increase of $301,000.
Was it increase
Okay, that's significant.
301,000.
And that-
301,199. It's on page 11 in the packet. If you were here when Peter presented.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
And was there anything you were gonna say about the? Or, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when you're ready, I do want to say about the fund balance. Are you ready?
Art has his
Art-
hand
Art
raised,
has
and
his hand
and he's part of Region 19. so-
Archie.
Arthur,
Thank you, Peter.
Arthur. Yo, Art.
Sorry, my slider was where my mute was not. So I just want to let you know we Region discussed on Tuesday they anticipate lowering it. So if you want, I can give you the anticipated number we're going to vote on in a couple weeks. That is so Wellington would become a 5.05% increase. I don't have can't see the number. I have it on a text. I'm sorry. It looks like $224,773. So I'm sorry, a 4.85% increase. That's not official, but that is what as of the last budget meeting we have on the schedule, that is the anticipated number that Wellington is going to incur.
Did you set what is that the request number you were giving and? Or the,
That is the anticipated Wellington portion of that budget.
Art, can you repeat the increased amount?
Yeah, it is. Do you want the change amount or do you want the total total for the
Both.
year.
Sure, we'll take both.
Again, I apologize, the numbers are 100% accurate because they are very unclear in my text. It looks like the request from Wellington is $4,856,966, which is an increase of $224,773, or 4.85%.
It's just in, thanks.
Thank you, Art.
Sure, no problem.
Sure.
Carry on, Donna.
Thank you. Okay. The amount of fund balance that you can apply to the budget is the last revenue item that we didn't talk about. So I just want to recap the other items, and I'm going to start with the grand list. And the growth in the grand list is 7 new houses, new construction, 7 new houses. So that's going to be the increase in the grand list.
So that's that. Go ahead, just keep,
I would like to hear your question.
where does that show up here?
Oh, that is not on here. That was on last week's, but I feel like there was confusion because the reval muddies the water, and we cannot compare grand list to grand list. We can compare net equalized grand list to net equalized grand list, but the net equalized grand list comes from the state of Connecticut, and we will not have it until April. So we have to go with what we know is new construction, and there's no new commercial, and there's 7 new houses. So that's gonna be new. That's new revenue. Okay, so
Do you
now,
have a figure for that? I mean, a
yeah.
projected figure?
Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I don't, but I will ask the assessor to figure it out based on the value of those 7 new homes and how much tax revenue that will generate for you, for the Board of Finance. Okay, so now the fund balance projection. Okay, it is okay, start with the revenues. And I'm projecting that the revenues will be favorable by 89,000. And I think that because every year the tax revenues are 100,000 more than budgeted. So I have that figured there. The money from the state, the forecast from the state is 11,000 less than we have budgeted. It looks like our fees are tracking favorable, our local fees that maybe will give us 1,500 more. So I'm figuring the investment income will come in as budgeted. The other revenues, our miscellaneous things will come in as budgeted. So we'll have 89,000 to the good. When we get to the expenditure side of the budget, for now, I am figuring that everybody will spend their budget as they have it. I see that the $15,000 contingency hasn't been spent yet, so I'm figuring that's not going to be spent. So I have that in as the one favorable expenditure. So as you keep going down, when the budget was designed, we had planned to dip into the fund balance 900,000. Since we're gonna have a little more revenue and a little less in expense, we're not gonna have to dip in 900,000, we'll have to dip in 795,000. So now I'm going to the audit report that shows 2.5 million in fund balance when we started the year, July 1. Now, when we get to the end of the year on June 30th, I'm adding back 900,000 because we're not gonna need to take out 900,000, only gonna need to take out 795,000. So I'm taking out 795,000 and I'm forecasting a fund balance of 2.6. Okay, that's your number that, that you have in total to apply. And you are applying, and then I have a little chart going. That if you apply 700,000, what that does to your remaining fund balance. And if you apply 600,000, what that does to your remaining fund balance. And the remaining fund balance is a percent of the budgeted expenditure appropriation, which right now it's 23,000. That's on the last page, page 11, and it's the total of the three budgets, general government, region 19, and the pre-K through 8 budget. That's gonna change because I'm gonna adjust it for the new number from Art, and I'm gonna adjust it for the less 160,000 for CIP. But anyway, right now we're using 23,000. So if you apply $700,000, and so take that away from the 2.6, and now you're down to 1.9. 1.9 is 8.3% of the budgeted expenditure appropriation. The policy is 8 to 12%. If you apply 600,000, you're at 8.8% of your expenditure appropriation. 500,000, 9.2%, 400,000, 9.6%. So when I did the revenue forecast for you, I picked 400,000 because that's kind of close to 10%, which is smack dab in the middle of the 8 to 12. But it's your choice how much you want to apply. The more you apply, the lower the percent. So I'll do it again when we get closer to the end of the year, and we'll maybe see how much money is going to come back on the expenditure side.
And if I remember correctly, last year with the investments, we actually got quite a bit more back.
Yes, we did.
We got more in investments than we had been expecting, so that was
Yes,
quite a benefit.
that really helped us.
Yeah,
Think we're on target this year, but they're 197.
okay. Darn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, darn. So anyway, let me know if you have any questions on applying fund balance and how much you have to apply. And let me know if you have any questions on the revenue forecast. I know it's not as exact as it has been in the past, and that is because the reval is muddying it. Anyway,
Thank you. For debating this.
look at page 11 in the bottom line.
What did you say last night that general government is down to with the CIP as it now stands?
I,
Do you remember?
last number I had was 19.2, and I haven't seen an update since then. We didn't rework it after last night's change, and we went into last night at 19.
Okay, this has in this document it has 16.8 for general government. Is that,
Is it,
what's the difference
I
between?
could be 16, and I was I'm remembering an earlier number, I'm sorry.
16.8 is everybody, you know, fire departments, the whole
The
thing,
transfer out.
the whole general
Okay.
government. Then Peter's section, you know, was
Gotcha.
19.5,
That's what it
but
was.
that's changing a little bit after last night's CRP meeting.
Be ready to. Were there other questions on this part? Or can we raise other things?
Any other questions are done? Any further discussion?
Well, the only thing is that makes it really hard for us is there's sort of two variables of four things, kind of, you know, I mean, as far as really arriving at, you know, what's needed, it's clearer than it was last week. But, you know, as you point out, it's not.
Okay, so two variables of four.
Well, I mean,
things.
it's.
What are the two variables? Are you talking about on the revenue side? Or
Yeah,
are you talking on the expenditure side? I
well,
don't think there's a whole heck of a lot of new revenue.
yeah.
7 houses.
7 houses, okay,
70
what are the two
I'm
variables?
thinking more about computing, you know, there's confusion about what. Like, I don't know if there's some way that from the reval that we could project an average. Or, you know, I don't even know if average is the right word, mill rate. For the current, for right now, what it would be,
Yes, we could get that.
okay,
We could,
You know what the increase in the,
yes, we just take, we have.
the overall increase is 46% in the reval, right?
Right, we have the
property
grand list and we have the expenditures, so we can figure a quick and dirty, and I'll make you a table, a quick and dirty mill rate. So, you know, the mill rate,
Sounds like a trademark thing we
the
need
mill
to
rate's gonna go
trademark, yeah.
down, but
Yeah.
because the assessments went up, you know, likely the tax bill will go up.
I looked at my own just in, you know, just in an isolated way.
Yes,
You know, using the 46%, you know, figure and the existing mill rate and everything else. And it came to like a 21.5 mill rate. And right now it's at 31.89. So I'm thinking it's probably roughly 10 points, but I know that would vary widely depending on, you know, what the reassessments were and everything. So I'm just trying to get a handle. That's the big question mark. The number that we would need to take the budget down to achieve a certain percentage is a big question mark. I just
Sure.
feel like, you know, it's hard to get rooted. One thing I'm interested in is besides the federal mandates on salary and things like that are in the general government budget. I'd like to see from the transfer outs as well, but you know, the adds to staff. The impact of each of those, maybe by position. And plus their benefits, contingent benefits, because that's also savings in a budget, right?
yes,
And not to presuppose what discussion of the board would be, but if we could see that, I mean, the stress of the sort of, the fact that we have some mandates in there anyway, because we have a minimum wage that we had to meet. We have 4 positions that were upgraded pay wise based on a federal, you know, mandate, yeah. That's what we gotta start with, you know, doing, but I think after that adds to staff
Okay.
are really the thing that we need to look at, because even though there's many good reasons for it, we're also including the full year, full amount for the senior center coordinator,
Yes,
which is a full-time position, right?
yes.
And
No,
35 hours.
I don't believe so.
It's not good.
I don't believe so. I thought it was closer to 15 and it's like $11,000 a year if I remember correctly. It's on- Oh,
You're talking about I'm talking about the senior center coordinator.
okay.
She's talking about Nan King.
Yeah.
The senior center.
Yeah, isn't that the position that you have in there? That was, I think it's on page 3 or 4. It says, added from ARPA.
Yes, that's right. That is the,
That's Nan King.
yes, senior center coordinator. That is
Yes.
Nan King.
Where is this?
She's, might not be full time.
No, I don't believe she is.
You think she's part-time?
I think
Okay,
she is.
okay. I'll take your word for it. I'll look it up tomorrow.
Yeah,
Oh, it's at senior center operations, that's a position.
I think that's the coordinator, yeah.
That's,
So, and that shows up,
That coming over from the ARPA.
but it shows up in the fund transfer, Fund 13. And it shows up in Karen Cote's budget.
that looks like
senior
a
center
full-time
coordinator.
salary tonight.
Yeah, it looks like a full-time
Full-time
salary.
What is it?
44.5.
Oh,
That's a full-time salary.
I thought I
No, I'm
thought
pretty
11,000
sure.
someplace.
See, it was graded up during the ARPA years,
Oh, increase, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm, talking about the full salary,
Oh,
yeah. We're
Sorry.
now seeing the full impact of the
Yeah.
salary in
Yes.
your budget or our budget, the general town budget. And so that's stuff that's hardwired, I would say. But the optional things that are being added this year or sought this year, I think we kind of need to see what that is for context, because that's the growth. That's, and there's contractual stuff we can't deal with. The other thing I found difficult was because of that funky thing with the raises. That it's like 5.2 generally instead of 2 point whatever it was before,
And a lot
yeah,
of
because
turnover.
it wasn't in,
and a lot of turnover.
right.
So it's very hard to see what people are actually getting for raises.
Yeah, because sometimes
I-
it's 5.2, but then
Yes.
it'll jump to 6.9 on somebody else, and I was looking at that one thinking, well, how did that one happen?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no, we're not really seeing the context for that. And in the past, when we've sort of looked at positions, we've kind of looked at salaries. I think we need to have that benefit factor so we can know the full weight of that. If I'm assuming you've already inserted in these requests for positions, the benefit part of it.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
in the
because in
budget.
some cases, moving someone from under 20 hours to 20 hours, and that kicks in a benefit moment.
Yes.
So, things
You're
like that.
correct. So the two optional additions are the 0.6 FTE in Public Works and the Public Works Administrative Assistant from 15 hours, which is part-time without benefits, to 20 hours, which is part-time eligible for benefits.
Right.
So those are the two on the list.
What about the school,
Okay,
the facility?
yep, that's in Bill's budget, so I can provide that too.
And then there's the human services.
That's not new, however.
Yeah, I believe there's also a 3-hour increase for Colleen,
Yeah, the
Four.
assistant,
4-hour increase. And I don't believe that brings her up to, it brings her up to 14, which is not benefits. And that's a minimum wage job, I believe, so.
Okay, but you want
That's-
that on the list as the optional addition? You want that number? Okay, they got it.
what does it take it from, 11 to 15?
10 to 14.
10 to 14,
So there's no benefits, but.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of these were, you know, valid things to look at, and they're not, and none of them seem to be in the scheme of things, an aggressive ask. But this year, with what we're looking at and the uncertainty of this year, it's a tougher thing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I ask a question?
yes, you may.
Somewhere around this time, this meeting or the next one, we typically would get into running the magic spreadsheet on the screen and starting to see, like with the numbers that Donna's just been over and the budget requests, when all the calculating starts happening, what will that actually mean for basically for people's tax bills? Is that something you anticipate next week or, I'm asking because I'm trying to do it right now over here and I'm just pulling the numbers from the budget and as Donna's saying it. And, I'm just curious. I think I'm curious along with a lot of other people at when we apply all the numbers, what it actually means to our tax bill.
I could not answer that question.
Do you anticipate doing the magic spreadsheet next meeting, maybe? Is that what you're thinking?
We can do that.
Yes, I'm thinking that would be. You have to at
We'll have to
least
have it
start it,
appropriate.
so we can get the information out on the hearing, which is April 9th.
Right, but
Do we want
The
to plug a couple numbers in and
appropriations
see it
list.
tonight?
what's that?
Do we want to just plug a couple numbers in and do it and start it tonight? I don't know if Donna's ready, but mine is close.
We'll do it next week. How would you do that?
It's the same spreadsheet that we
Well,
used
I
when we
know.
were on the board
You're in
together.
your own little corner there, you're isolated like.
Yeah, we could probably share them for the big.
Oh, I could just go on Zoom. I could join the meeting and share. I'm just trying to get
Actually,
to,
I'm
what
trying
does
to-
all this mean for our tax bills?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. That's all.
I'm curious, but seems,
Seems like we'll know next week.
I agree with you that I am also curious, but I think that you need to be thinking or ahead on what some of your appropriation cuts are gonna be first. And get some of that in, because I think if we just throw up the numbers right now, raw, it probably would not be good.
I think it might get a little ugly, yeah.
Donna, is there any way that we could get like the appropriations kind of set up so that we don't have to flip through pages and?
Yeah. I would set, yes, I will
You
set that
like-
up for you. And I'll also set up. How much you can spend. To, what the mill rate would be if you spend such and such, or then if you. Go, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That's a
Then you-
calculator.
Yeah, somehow, I'll figure that out, so
Thank you.
you. Can figure out the level of spending. That you wanna put forth to the taxpayer.
Anything else?
Yeah, because calendar wise, Bruce, what I have is in our schedule is tonight. Starting deliberations. Are underway, next week, and then April 3rd is an optional night. To clean up and do appropriations.
Yeah.
We're not very far along.
Yeah, but we had agreed that we were probably going to need our optional night because there was one night that we pretty much had to cancel, if I remember correctly. We left like very early because a couple of departments weren't ready or something along those lines, if I remember very early.
Yeah.
You and I are on the same page.
Yes.
Not just me.
Oh, you people with memories.
I know.
Nice to be young.
Oh, yeah. Spring chicken over here.
Surely out of the bag.
Look at all the gray hair.
All
I
right.
cover mine.
We will move on to present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress. Stay on topic and maintain decorum. And we have Ralph Tellis. Is Ralph?
Coolest. It was pretty simple, actually, but All right, I agree with Mr. McCoo. The sooner we can start to see some real numbers, not hear them, see them, on paper. Because there's a lot of us, I'm sure Mike and I are similar. We're gonna scrutinize the numbers carefully and make our own determination as to what we think the impact is going to be on the average homeowner. And that's my first comment. Second comment. Last night, I kind of got cornered into speaking to the 200,000 that was set aside for the fire department building committee. And I'm not speaking tonight for the committee as a whole, but I am going to speak to what will be discussed at our next meeting. But a point that I'd like to make for year 2 in the CIP is once the committee's been able to digest the consultant's recommendations, and there will be 2 or 3 or more, we're going to be in a position to debate amongst ourselves what's our best course of action for the town. And once we agree, which we will ultimately have to do because that's our charge, once we agree on a course of action to be recommended to the Board of Selectmen, things can move rather quickly, getting to the point of shovel ready. This is not like a school project that has a lot of bureaucracy that's overseeing it. It's more local. So whether it stays in year 2 or you move it out, what I'm concerned about is how much, I would call it front money, will the town have to dig into its own coffers for before we can realize any bond money that is actually spendable. I hope that made sense. One of the disadvantages to moving this 200K out is that we're in some sense kicking the can down the road again. And the sooner we can get something solidified with the committee, the better. I just want to make sure there's money available if it's needed to move forward quickly. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
You, Rob. Anybody else for president to speak? Thanks, James.
James Michael, Fisher Road, speaking personally on behalf of the CIP. I just want to, I guess, piggyback on Ralph and Mike's concerns. Sounds like you guys have 2 meetings left before you're moving a budget forward, and I haven't heard yet any meaningful deliberation on anything. That doesn't sound like you have the data yet. You know, I come here kind of anticipating a lot of questions about CIP, and because I thought you guys are going to be doing deliberations, and it's just I'm nervous that we're going to make arbitrary cuts just to hit targets without relevant due diligence. Yeah, I just, the sooner we can get a sense of the community as to where this is falling, so that, and you can get a sense so that you can deliberate it, the better off everybody's gonna be. And I just hope it's gonna be 2 long meetings for you guys, I think, over the coming next 2 weeks, but thanks for the efforts, and I wish you luck. I know how hard it is.
Thank you. Anybody else for president to speak? Anybody for good and welfare? Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right, thanks, everybody.
Next meeting, I add to this sort. Thank you.
Did you email that out or brought it during?